Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. It's Friday after all, so I thought I'd get out of my suit. I hope the week's gone well. Macro thoughts. I like this quote from Gonzo Vice, which is a Twitter handle for Hunter S. Thompson, in fact. There is always a bull market for vengeance and violence in America. I've been reading some Hunter S. Thompson again because it sort of was a similar period that he was writing in. Home thoughts. I came across this photograph. Christina Onassis and Maria Callas on board Christina O, the yacht of Aristotle Onassis in Monaco in 1959. And then I went to find some quotes from Aristotle Onassis, who was quite a character, wasn't he? If there weren't any women, all the money in the world wouldn't matter. He, of course, married Jacqueline Kennedy. It is in our darkest moments where we have to focus to see the light. To be successful, you have to act big, think big, and talk big. I made a mistake. I never believed that in the world we live in, emotions can overcome every logic in business. Let's go from that to a made in Kenya sunrise. We were at the Amboseli heading out for our morning game drive to look for elephants when this happened. Beautiful photograph. So I take you from the Amboseli to the beach. I think this was taken near a place called Shimoni, but I could be corrected by Faith Kanja. It's one of my favorite photographs of coastal evening. And then I like this one too, Nairobi by Job Artography. And you can see it's quite evocative. I always supported Manchester United. We had some very, very tough times when I started supporting them, but the good times have returned. And this was a tweet from Football Tweets Class, one of the best fan photos of the season so far. Couldn't agree more. For scientists, each eclipse is a natural experiment, and religious history tends to play a significant sort of extra-worldly role. Political reflection. Spanish Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy is seen during an emergency meeting following the attack in Barcelona. 5 suspected terrorists were killed after twin attacks in Spain. Spanish police killed 5 suspected terrorists after confrontation in a town south of Barcelona just hours after a van rampaged down the city's iconic Las Ramblas Avenue and left 13 people dead. 6 civilians and a police officer were injured in the second incident in the resort town of Cambrils, which the government said was connected to the Barcelona attack. Suspects broke through a checkpoint early Friday and began running over pedestrians on the oceanfront promenade, after which they were shot by police. London, Brussels, Paris and other European cities have suffered this experience. This was Catalonia's regional president, Carlos Puigdemont. And today it has happened to Barcelona. It took me back to January 2015. I wrote a piece about Europe being off balance. And I said the arrival of the asymmetric threat on the streets of Paris and European cities, because it infected other cities, was deeply unsettling and surely will keep Europe off balance and presages a new normal. 1 killed, 32 injured, but it seems there were more killed. And it's interesting that Zero Hedge then picked up on a request for proposals around the development of NATO military operations in urban environments concept. There's no military solution to North Korea, Steve Bannon says. They got us. Interesting. Cartoons this week from The Economist. I don't have to say any more. And from the latest cover of The New Yorker. They speak for themselves. Man without a country, Julian Assange, WikiLeaks and the 2016 presidential election is a fabulous article in the New Yorker, but it's extremely long. Take a look at it. I'll just read you a few bits. The Ecuadorian embassy in London is situated at the end of a wide brick lane next to the Harrods department store in Knightsbridge. Sometimes plainclothes police officers or vans with tinted windows can be found outside of the building. Sometimes there are throngs of people around it. Sometimes there is virtually no one, which was the case in June 2012, when Julian Assange, the publisher of WikiLeaks, arrived disguised as a motorcycle courier to seek political asylum. In the 5 years since then, he has not set foot beyond the embassy. Nonetheless, he has become a global influence, proving that with simple digital tools, a single person can craft a new kind of power, a distributed transnational power which functions outside norms of state sovereignty that have held for centuries. Encouraged by millions of supporters, Assange has interfered with the world's largest institutions. His releases have helped fuel democratic uprisings, notably in Tunisia, where a revolution sparked the Arab Spring, and they have been submitted as evidence in human rights cases around the world. At the same time, Assange's methodology and his motivations have increasingly come under suspicion. During the presidential election last year, he published tens of thousands of hacked emails written by Democratic operatives, releasing them at pivotal moments in the campaign. They provoked strikingly disparate receptions. "I love WikiLeaks," Donald Trump declared in exultant gratitude after the election. Hillary Clinton argued that the releases had been instrumental in keeping her from the Oval Office. Assange is not an easy man to get on the phone, let alone see in person. Protected by a group of loyal staffers and a shroud of organizational secrecy. Our friend compared him to the central figure in Philip K. Dick's The Man in the High Castle, a recluse trying to reset the course of history. In many ways, the embassy has become a surreal redoubt, a place of extreme seclusion in the center of a bustling world capital, a protective stronghold that few can enter, even though it is the target of millions of dollars worth of covert surveillance. "I'm here to see Mr. Assange. Do you have an appointment?" "I do." "Ah," he said, brightening, "then come in." Talking about his celebrity friends PJ Harvey, Brian Eno. Assange's physical universe for the past 5 years has been roughly 330 square feet, comprising his private quarters and a few rooms that he shares with Ecuadorian staff. "It's like living in a space shuttle," a friend of his told me. Assange explained that his landscape was becoming a blur. "The walls of the embassy are as familiar as the interior of my eyelids. I see them, but I do not see them. Nothing is before or after," he told the doctor. "There are diminishing reference points." In his confinement, Assange has become a quixotic cultural icon, helping to give the solitary act of whistleblowing the contours of a movement. And then getting much more into the detail of the hacking claims. It's a fabulous essay. It's well worth reading. In isolation, Assange has come to resemble the Wizard of Oz, a pallid inventor hidden behind a grand machine. And then basically going into the detail of the accusation against him, which I wrote about in December when I wrote a piece called "We Have a Deviate Tomahawk." And I said my starting point is the election of President Trump, because hindsight will surely show that Russia ran a seriously sophisticated program of interference, mostly digital. Don DeLillo, who is a prophetic 21st century writer, writes as follows in one of his short stories. "The specialist is monitoring data on his mission console when a voice breaks in, a voice that carried with it a strange and unspecifiable poignancy. He checks in with his flight dynamics and conceptual paradigm officers at Colorado Command. We have a deviate tomahawk. We copy, there's a voice. We have gross oscillation here. There's some interference. I've gone redundant, but I'm not sure it's helping. We are clearing an out frame to locate source. Thank you, Colorado. It is probably just selective noise, your negative red on the step function quad. It was a voice, I told them. We've just received an affirm on selective noise. We will correct Tomahawk. In the meantime, advise you to stay redundant. The voice, in contrast to Colorado's metallic pidgin, is a melange of repartee, laughter and song with a quality of purest, sweetest sadness. Somehow we were picking up signals from radio programs of 40, 50, 60 years ago. And read the detail of that article in the New Yorker, and I was speaking about non-linearity. You have to learn how to navigate a linear system, new 21st century digital ecosystem in a non-linear way. And you keep saying it, the Russians never gave it to me. The Russians could have given it to somebody else to give it to you. That's the non-linearity. It's rather cute. It's called a cutout. I think I learned a technical word for it. From feeding the hothouse conspiracy frenzy online, a constant state of destabilized perception, timely and judicious doses of WikiLeaks leaks, which drained Hillary's bona fides and her turnout and motivated Trump's. What we have witnessed is something remarkable and noteworthy. Moving away from that, I saw this. HMS Queen Elizabeth, the UK's new 65,000-ton aircraft carrier, the largest warship ever to be built, dwarfs the other boats around it. We, of course, came across Queen Elizabeth the Rhino, and the Saharan is equally, not maybe 65,000 tons, but equally impressive. Far-right lawmaker Pauline Hanson caused a stir when she walked onto the floor of the Senate in a burqa. Grandstanding. Value of bonds yielding negative interest rates has jumped over the past month to $8.5 trillion on soft inflation data and haven demand on geopolitical risk. And it's quite interesting, isn't it? We were seeing a sell-off, and then suddenly we've had this sort of uncertainty around Trump, and it's just sent people piling back into the bond markets. Euro dollar 117.28 all over the place yesterday. Dollar index again working hard to defend this 93.50 level, just a bit below at 93.48. Dollar yen 109.04. Swiss franc 0.9616. The pound 128.86. The Australian dollar, which was up and down, this is apparently their weakest month, 0.7918. India rupee 64.115. South Korean won 1139.92. Brazilian real 317.51. Egyptian pound is at 17.7675, and the South African rand at 13.2395. The euro has strengthened against 26 of its 31 major peers. The only ones who've managed to repel its advance are the Mexican peso, the Czech koruna, the Polish zloty, the Hungarian forint, and the Swedish krona. The big story of 2017 is the euro, he said, which is likely to extend its upward trend when the ECB provides more clarity on tapering. Euro dollar, let me put up a 3-month chart. We've had this tremendous rally. We're now at 117.30. Dollar index, as I said previously, the key level for me is 93.50. We're trying hard to hold on to it. Follow the money, a shift to extreme short positioning in the dollar has coincided with the fall in Trump's approval rating to record lows. This was the point of my Apocalypse Trump article. However, having said that, I still think we've got a lot of news priced in. I don't, barring an impeachment, I think the dollar could find a footing here. Alibaba uses its shopping leverage. Average revenue on mobile at Alibaba has more than doubled in the past 2 years. Really strong results came out, and he was here, and he said in the old days we had a Silk Road, in the future it will be the E-Road. I thought that was good. While Tencent has added $169 billion in value this year, it's dwarfed by Alibaba's $202 billion surge. just made Jack Ma's company the most valuable in China. If you haven't had a chance to listen to what he said here in Nairobi, that link is up there as well. My price target, notwithstanding, is $32 for WTI. Lee Sachs, $47.09 settlement. We're back at $47.40. Gold, now that's had a big move, $12.93.50. This is on geopolitical worries. We've spoken about this. This is all about tail risks, and the perception is that tail risks have gone up. But it's been rejected at that 1300 level a few times. Let's see how we deal when we get up here. To sell an $80 million house, its owners raised the price. Quite a story. Mansion in Los Angeles. Take a look at the screening room and the ballroom. Moving on to Africa, Angola ruling party candidate, a chauffeur, the opposition says. Angola's ruler, Jose Eduardo dos Santos, will keep his grip on power if his party wins elections next month, even though he steps down as president after 38 years in office, according to the country's main opposition leader. The ruling Popular Movement for the Liberation of Angola has picked 63-year-old Defense Minister João Lourenço as its presidential candidate for the August 23 vote. Lourenço will just be a chauffeur, with the boss sitting in the back seat and directing him where to turn, when to accelerate, to slow down, and when to stop. Lourenço didn't win his candidacy via contest or party election. Asked whether UNITA will accept the outcome of the poll should it result in defeat by the ruling party, Samakuva replied, "Only if that is the will of the people expressed in the ballots." The Economist is also speaking about how the MPLA's grip on Angola is weakening. It is fitting that the black and red flag of Angola is hardly distinguishable from that of its ruling party. The People's Movement for the Liberation of Angola has led the country since independence from Portugal in 1975. At the parliamentary election in 2008, it won 82% of the vote. In 2012, it won 72%. Few doubt it will win again when Angolans go to the polls on August 23. There are signs, however, that the MPLA's stranglehold on Angolan politics is loosening. Its leader is stepping down after being president for 38 years. The party's luster has faded as the low oil price turned Angola's boom into a bust. And, in many respects, they're very similar to Venezuela. They're doubling down on their borrowing. I don't think they've made the adjustments that are necessary. The MPLA needs to free itself of the control of Dos Santos. Without a strong mandate, Mr. Lourenço may find it difficult to do what is necessary. The government must devalue the currency, say analysts. Fast rising debt, which helped the government maintain spending in the run-up to the election, may force Angola to ask the IMF for help. I think that's inevitable. Interesting piece, Ethiopia to Djibouti, a journey along the new Beijing-backed Ethiopia-Djibouti rail. This is Pulitzer Center, do take a look. Police on red alert to prevent Grace Mugabe leaving South Africa. Quite an extraordinary story there. President Kagame is being sworn in today. The president of Djibouti is seen in this photograph arriving in Rwanda. Congo Republic's Prime Minister Clement Mwamba and his cabinet have resigned amid a growing economic crisis. Debt to GDP at about 117%, lied to the IMF about the total exposure. The situation in the country is troubling. I will need to lean on a government that is effective and fully mobilized to implement bold reforms and appropriate policies in order to revive the national economy. That was Gresso. Krugerrand, top South African investment since 2000. The rand value of the coin has outperformed local property in the stock market. Gold priced in US dollars. South African all shares up 9.4% so far this year. Dollar versus rand, when I looked last, 13.2395. Nothing is impossible. These three words are written on a plaque that Aliko Dangote keeps on his office desk in Lagos. Interesting article on Bloomberg. Who asked, do you ever worry about being too bold? I never worry about being too bold. He said, in business it's good to be aggressive, but with a human face. You have to work hard. Things don't come that easy. Think big, dream big, and do big things, he said. Nigerian all shares up 35.13% so far this year. The Ghana Stock Exchange Index is up 34.65% year to date. The Economist is saying it seems more likely that Mr. Odinga's protests will fizzle out than they will explode. He called for non-violent protests and said that he will contest the result of Kenya's Supreme Court rather than on the streets. Neither prospect will much trouble Mr. Kenyatta unless Mr. Odinga can provide evidence of rigging, which he can't. Ambassadors of Western countries have made clear he should give up. While political uncertainty about the election retreats, another sort might emerge. The biggest victor might not have been Mr. Kenyatta, but his Vice President William Ruto. Mr. Ruto wants to maintain the ethnic alliance between Kikuyus, Mr. Kenyatta's tribe, and Kalenjians, his own group, when he runs for president in 2022. Yet many question whether Kikuyus will really back him. Perhaps the most powerful message from Mr. Odinga's ultimately failed campaign was the claim that Kenya's affluence is not reaching the poor who cannot eat GDP, you'll remember. Because of a prolonged drought, more than 2 million Kenyans are at risk of starvation. For the rest, food prices are soaring. If the economy slows, a relatively calm election may mark just the start of Mr. Kenyatta's problems. Whether the court rules in our favour or against us, we don't really care, Mr. Odinga told Kim de Freitas of the New York Times. Kenya is now on the third liberation struggle, a free, fair and credible electoral process that goes way beyond vote casting. That's Musalia Mudavadi. Housing Finance reported first half earnings per share slumped 74.074, loans and advances down 1.305%, profit after tax down 74.041%, earnings per share down 74.074%, no interim dividend, very soft first half earnings. They are actually in the tier most affected by the interest rate cap. The drop in our performance is a result of the prevailing impact of the interest rate capping law, said Frank Ireri, impact of unfavourable macroeconomic environment that resulted in a significant drop in interest-related income and an increase in interest-related expenses. Company's stock of bad debt surged 47.5% to 7.9 billion shillings. Mr. Ireri said the lender is ready to settle its 7 billion shilling bond in October, and saying it's going to perform better in the second half. Co-op, as I said, is up 64.69% on a total return basis. Reported half-year results yesterday. I took a look at them. TPS Saharan closed at a 2017 high. It's up 34.14%, and it too released results yesterday, which we already looked at. Nairobi all share slowed its correction. It came down 0.43%. But remains up 24.55%, and the NSE 20 down 0.58%, but remains up 26.98% year to date. I wish you a wonderful weekend.